Hey everyone, glad to be back with you again. It's easy to bring up the name of Star Fox in the US now, as he's become such a big part of Nintendo's legacy over the years. He's one of the most popular characters to play as in Smash Bros., and he's had multiple sequels and re-releases to keep the fans happy. But we're here to talk more about the title that started it all, the original Star Fox for the Super Nintendo. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I felt some hesitation with the idea of going back to this title, as I had some great memories of it from when I was younger, but also imagined that the graphics would have to look very dated by now, especially since we've been spoiled by the other sequels, including Star Fox 64. Nevertheless, I knew it would be worth checking out again and sharing that experience with you all. So with that said, let's strap in and see just how well Star Fox for the Super Nintendo holds up today. Programmed by Argonaut Games for the Super Nintendo and first published by Nintendo in 1993, Star Fox, or Star Wing depending on your home country, is a first and third person rail shooter starring a team of anthropomorphic animals, Star Fox, Slippy Toad, Falco Lombardi, and Peppy Hare, who pilot ships called R-Wings to defeat the evil scientist Andross, who declares war on the planet of Corneria and must be stopped at all costs. It's easy to take the smoother look of games like Star Fox 64 for granted now, but back in the early 90s, full-on 3D technology was not so easy to come by, especially in the console market. Programmer Jez San of Argonaut Games pitched the idea of making a new custom piece of hardware to put in the cartridge. This would allow the game to use 3D technology as the developers at Nintendo had originally intended. This chip, known as the Super FX chip, would go on to be used in other games, like the SNES port of Doom, and Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. The game's actual design was done by famed Nintendo developer Shigeru Miyamoto and Katsuya Eguchi, now known for the Animal Crossing games, among other things. In order to determine a way to keep the player focused on moving forward without a bunch of empty space in front of them, the Senbon Torii gates at the Fushimi Inari Taisha Shrine near Nintendo headquarters would serve as the main inspiration to include gates and rings to help the player along. At the time of its release, the game was considered a technical revolution, as there had simply never been anything like it on a console before. It was even compared to virtual reality technology in ways that people hadn't imagined since the release of the movie Tron. Sure, this kind of thing wasn't exactly new to PC games, but to the console market, it was everything. The gameplay is relatively simple, though difficult to master. Star Fox has 4 different control options to choose from, but I'll just describe A so that I'm not talking here in circles. Your D-pad works with inverted controls, where down moves your ship up, and up moves it down, while left and right are still just that. The Y button is your basic laser fire, the A button fires smart bombs, the B button is your brake, or retro rocket as they call it, button, and X allows you to speed boost for a short amount of time. The select button also switches between third and first person modes. The gameplay will typically start you in third person view when you're on a planet, or first person mode when you're out in space, but this can thankfully be changed at any time. I enjoyed the first person view, but usually found myself doing better with the third. And finally, the left and right shoulder buttons will tilt your ship sideways, and double tapping it will allow you to do the infamous barrel roll, and dodge oncoming attacks quicker. Your ship moves forward automatically, allowing you to focus on what's coming up on the screen, which helps, since you'll need most of your energy just to focus on the enemies and obstacles in your path. The enemy ships and creatures you encounter are extremely varied and interesting, as they take on all kinds of different shapes and sizes. With the exception of a few space missions, I never felt like any level was too similar to another, whether in appearance or gameplay design. Each stage has you fight through enemy forces, dodge incoming obstacles, and face off with a unique boss at the end. The bosses all have unique types of weaknesses, which you're always able to denote by the blinking lights over them. The sound and music all complement the experience very well too, though some of it does end up sounding a bit choppy. I believe this is because of new technology though, and I wouldn't blame composer Hajime Hirasawa or the effects made by Koji Kondo here. In fact, I love both the music and sound in this game despite this. There are also rings and power-ups to help you throughout each stage. The silver and gold moving rings heal you, while the steady supply rings serve as checkpoints and appear 1 or 2 times in each stage. You can also find additional bombs, replacement wings if one happens to break, an enhancement for your blaster, and even the occasional extra lives. You'll occasionally reach a shield power-up too, which makes you temporarily invincible for the next few hits you take. The game has 3 difficulty settings, simply referred to as Level 1, Level 2, and Level 3, but there's more to it than that. While they are indeed organized by difficulty, they also carry their own set of stages to go along with them. Yes, while you start out on Corneria each and every playthrough, you quickly go to completely different stages following this. That may sound a little frustrating to some, as it means you won't really be able to get the full experience if you only play the game on one setting. That's understandable considering you only start the game with 2 lives to begin with. So how does it all feel to play? Well, this is admittedly going to be a point of contention for some gamers as its appearance has not aged as well. Everything is quite blocky, and being as this was the first game to utilize the Super FX chip, the frame rate can reach exceedingly low levels whenever large enemies or explosions appear on screen, which is quite often, obviously. After having played the original back in the 90s and then Star Fox 64, it was hard to consider going back to this one as I didn't know if I'd enjoy it as much. And I'm not going to lie, if you've never played this game before, there will be a bit of a learning curve to it, especially if you've ever enjoyed Star Fox 64 or its other sequels. Your movement is generally slow and clunky, you have no target reticle to help you aim, and your only way of movement is with a D-pad, which is less than ideal for full 3D movement. With all that said, can it still be enjoyed? Yes, I believe it absolutely can. As I said before, there is a bit of a learning curve to this game's controls and design, but after about 10 minutes of playing the first stage or 2, or the surprisingly helpful training stage included, I think most people will be well on their way to getting the hang of things. After learning the basics and starting to understand the graphical design more, you begin to see all of the interesting nuances that were added to each stage. Some of my favorites included Titania, which starts out with a planet covered by immense amounts of fog. You're supposed to hit a switch to eliminate it and get to the boss fight, but if you don't reach it, the stage simply loops back again until you do. The visual change from fog to a clear atmosphere looked pretty great. There was also something nice about the various landscapes seen in Fortuna, as you switch between views of land and sea. Macbeth was another standout, with its bright red scenery that really made you feel like you were exploring an unknown world. And who could forget the final planet, Venom, with its dark setting and foreboding shots of lightning in the background. Yes, the creativity and personality is absolutely there. The same goes for each boss fight, as your battles range from giant enemy ships with spinning blades, all the way to large creatures that try to hit you with their tail. This game can be exceptionally difficult at times, but thankfully not to the point where it ever feels completely unfair or impossible. You simply learn a little more each time, apply that knowledge, and keep going farther and farther, with the final planet Venom putting all of your skills to the test. This all comes to a head, literally, with the final boss of the game, Andross. Looking like something out of the original Tron, Andross fires large pieces of debris from his eyes, which happen to also be the area you need to shoot at. Eventually, he tries to suck you into his mouth along with more debris which you have to avoid by breaking, and then shoots the debris back out at you. Once you finally take out the eyes, the head explodes, and all that's left is the image of the real Andross in a giant 3D square that you have to shoot in order to finish him off. The level 3 version of this fight is particularly nasty though, especially if you have no warning about this beforehand. The fight starts out like normal until after you take out both eyes like last time. Once Andross reconstructs himself, he takes on a far scarier appearance like some kind of gargoyle, and begins an even more relentless assault than the first form. It pretty much took barrel rolling back and forth with a lot of precision aiming to get this fight down. Once it's all over, your teammates, if they're still alive, all talk with you, and you'll receive a grade of your percentage throughout all the stages played before seeing it come to an end. If you're the type who likes to find secrets and hidden levels in your games, then you'll be happy to see there's quite a few things to discover too. For one, in the Asteroid Belt stage on Path 1, it's possible to enter a secret black hole by going to all 3 of the spinning asteroid belts, shooting the center asteroids at the last second for the first 2, and flying through the 3rd. You'll make a strange smiling asteroid appear. Shoot it down, and the awesome black hole will appear. And where does it take you? A creepy area called the Lost Ship Graveyard. I remember finding this for the first time and honestly wondering if Fox's father had somehow ended up here. The level doesn't last long, but the memory of it sure does. The game has one other secret area, simply called Out of This Dimension. This stage was apparently unfinished due to the developers declaring the ideas behind it to be simply impossible. Here's what we did get from it though. You have a constant barrage of paper that folds into origami shapes come at you with an extremely trippy and disorientating background of moving, happy moons, I think? Anyway, as you progress, you eventually reach a giant slot machine boss-ish fight in which you have to shoot at the lever again and again until you get all lucky 7s. You can also shoot at the occasional blinking area if you want one of your choices to stay in place while you spin the other two again. You also collect coins from this unless you get 3 Androsses, which bring your health back up. After finally getting 3 sevens, the machine explodes, credits roll, which you can now fly through, and the letters for the end appear, but in order to get them to actually spell the word, you have to shoot at them multiple times. Enemies also come to attack you while you try to do it. And after all that, nothing. You just do it again, and again, and again, and again. Interesting, if a little anticlimactic. But going back to today, can a gamer who's grown accustomed to more modern graphics, better targeting, and a higher frame rate possibly enjoy this game in its original state? I personally believe they can, but it may take a little adjusting. Obviously, the first time you pick this up, it's going to feel very slow and inconsistent with its movement due to the constantly changing frame rate. But I don't think this makes the game unplayable, like first impressions would have you believe. Picking this up after over 15 years, I was able to get the hang of it again within about 5 to 10 minutes time. Once you get past that slight learning curve, I believe you'll begin to get much better and finally enjoy this game the way you were meant to, with its creative worlds and hectic but fun scenarios. This game is a sign of just how far our imagination can take us. Star Fox 64 may have set the standard for the Star Fox games we've come to see, but that's only because it was a visual representation of everything that our younger selves had already imagined the game to be thanks to this original entry. Yes, I believe playing through this game will not only show you just how we came to reach the level of greatness that Star Fox 64 would attain, but will also show you an important piece of gaming history that deserves to be experienced by everyone, whether you end up loving it or hating it. But I personally think more people will end up loving it. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have you played this game recently yourself? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked what you saw and want to see more, please consider donating to my Patreon, where awesome people like Brandon, Erica, and Johan Alcazar help to keep this channel going. Until next time,